Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Let's Light with me, Mike Tanzillo. A couple announcements before we get started. First of which is that, number one, just a reminder of what it is that we're doing here. So what we're doing is we are going to be lighting a scene from start to finish. It's an animated scene that was done by Remus Low. He was one of our mentees. We had a program going recently where the head of Pixar's animation department, an amazing animator named Becky Tower, mentored a couple of our students and allowed them to create a couple animations. This is one of them, and what we're doing is we're taking it from start to finish. So this is part of our quarantine live broadcast series. As a reminder, Jasmine and I, when we first started this quarantine process, we wanted to do something special for the entire community. So we set about creating these 3 nights a week, these 3 live sessions. Mondays, I'll be doing these Let's Light sessions where we're going to be doing live lighting. Wednesdays, we're going to be answering your questions and connecting with you guys a little bit. And then on Fridays, we are going to be critiquing the work that was posted to the general community. Now, somebody asked me recently, just to give you a heads up, how long these episodes would be lasting, how long we'd be doing this. And I guess this is some personal news. My wife is now about to be 32 weeks pregnant. So my plan is to continue doing these until she delivers, and then I will take some time off to be with my family. And then we'll revisit where we are from there. But my plan is for the next few weeks. Who knows when that's going to come, but from now until then, I will be here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I can. Another announcement, make sure you check out this week's lighting challenge. It's on our asset library page. If you go to the Academy of Animated or www.academyofanimatedart.com, you can find our lighting challenges there. This week we have an incredible creature designed by Disney art director. And it's this little bat guy with the top hat. He's amazing. So definitely check him out. And okay, let's go ahead and get started. So to recap, hello. Well, let me just say hi to everybody. Hello, Clever. Hello, Trent. Hello, PC. I don't know who you are, but you are just under the list of PC. So I will say hi to your computer. It's very good. And Tyler, hi, everyone doing tonight. So, hello, Trent. So as I'm going through, I'm going to be kind of focused on my screen. And then if you all have any questions, make sure you add them in the Zoom chat window. You can add them to if you're on Facebook, you can add them to the Facebook comment. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, you can add them in the YouTube comments, and I'll make sure to swing on by and answer your questions for you there. So let's go ahead and start sharing the screen. Let's get underway. And don't know if I said this, we're going to try and keep this to a half hour today. I find that that's usually the best amount of time. So to revisit, here's the animated scene. So probably play choppy.
You in this house all alone. Who been taking care of you? Me. I've been here for you. Who else you got?
So pretty dramatic, want to like hit that serious tone a little bit. So what I've been doing is, again, to recap from last week, I was playing around with some lights. Stop sharing my camera. Was playing around with some lights, just like allowing myself to explore the space, explore the room, understand the geometry and the layout of what we're working with. We had a light outside the window here. We had a spotlight off here to the side, just kind of playing around with that and feeling like this rear daytime lighting was best. Now for our next step, what I really want to do, what I really want to accomplish today is I want to set up the base lighting scene, or first analyze some reference, get an understanding of what it is that we're trying to create given this lighting dynamic, start setting up some lights, play around with some renders, and then possibly at the end of this, get ourselves to a point where I can actually launch a couple renders during the next week so that next Monday we can pick it up and start working with, start building a rough composite. So with this in mind, I started to look for some reference, and I found the film, The Last Black Man in San Francisco. It's a film that has been on my radar for quite a while as being just a beautifully shot film. I've never actually watched it, but I've gone through tons of reference on this, and I really like this scene where this kind of like blown out lighting in the background. We've got dark skinned characters here in the foreground. It's all this stuff that we talk about in our classes about lighting dark skinned characters, you know, where the diffuse value, while important, it is secondary to the specular highlights. coming around the side. And I really kind of want to look at this as my main reference point. So again, main things I'm looking for: diffuse value is low to keep the character's hero color where it is. We've got specular highlights around either side. We've got a lot of glow and bloom. We've got a lot of warmth in this scene, you know, lots of oranges and red tones. We've got some dark silhouette features here in the foreground. I don't know if we'll be able to mimic that, but we can mimic this depth of field. Now, the most important thing for me, and this kind of comes through experience, which is the tricky part, which we're hoping to provide for you, is an understanding of what you need to do in the render and what can be done in the composite. So like the depth of field stuff, we'll play around with it, but I'll probably end up handling that in the composite. All this glowiness, all this softness definitely can be handled in post-production. But what I really, really want to hit on, oh, also everything outside this window, we can render the window separately and get in a background plate into the composite. So I know that I don't have to worry about this actual look outside the window. But what I do want to worry about is, again, this diffuse value, these specular highlights, just this kind of overall direction of lighting, the color of the lighting, getting everything to kind of work homogeneously. So let's hop over into our scene. Now, the first thing that I want to set up is, and again, you know, looking back at the animation file, there are two real hero points in what we're going to be working with. There's when he's looking off to this side and when he's looking forward. So we want to make sure to kind of hit both of those kind of two hero positions. So now we're going to leave it, I'm going to leave it here because I'm going to start lighting based on this, because this is when he, you know, starts this way. He doesn't really do the delivery of his major lines until this second pose. And that's where he spends, like he turns here around frame 90. He spends 2/3 of the shot in this pose. So this is going to be more of our hero here. So let's stick with this. So the first thing I want to do is establish this light outside of the window. And there's two different ways. Well, the first thing I want to do is delete these lights that I created from when we were just playing around. And I can't stress this enough. I really want to drive home this point that in your early stages of playing around, nothing is precious. As opposed to like taking the lights that we had before and trying to update those, it is so much more, I think it's so much of a better, cleaner process to just delete those and start from scratch. So starting with this window, there are two different types of lights that I can create to simulate that look. One is an area light. Just gonna make this a little bigger, goes outside the window, and just kind of rotate it into place. And I usually just do that. Okay, now we've got this light vaguely positioned outside the window here. All right, that's about where we want to be. Now what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and look at the camera, and I want to just see what this looks like. Because like I said, I have two different versions of a light that I could use for this. And I want to see just roughly out of the gate which one works better. So one option is this area light. Just going to crank this up a little bit more. Okay, that's working pretty well. Seems like it's going well. Like it seems like this is exactly what I want to do. I want light to spill in. I want some brightness around these edges. I want softness to kind of bowl through here. That's working out pretty well. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this image for now. And then what I'm gonna do is, so my other option that I do in my personal workflow is I would either do this area light, or I'm gonna go and turn this off by default, or I would create a sky dome. And you can see immediately what the problem is with this one, is that it's kind of without the geometry surrounding the scene, lights kind of coming in from all over the place. But what you can do in Arnold is create a light portal. So as long as I have this sky dome selected, I can create a light portal. And what this light portal does is it zeroes in all of the, it basically takes like a snippet of the sky dome, and it will kind of channel all of that into one space. So it's essentially doing what an area light would do anyway. And I'm sure there's some behind the scenes calculations that are that are a little different, which is why I'm testing both of them. So I'm going to throw this roughly in the same spot. And to control the value, I'll go ahead and turn this up to 15 and see what we got here. It's a little bright, so let's go tone that down. And I'd say, well, let's refresh the renderer because sometimes when I create a light or delete a light, the IPR render gets a little bit corrupted. So I want to make sure that that does not happen. So this is a little bit brighter. Tone it down. I want to kind of match what we're seeing value-wise in this one, because I want to be able to create like A for B, apples to apples type comparison between the two. And really what I'm looking for between the two is kind of some overall look stuff, and then additionally some noise stuff. What's causing that up there? See that like white thing in the corner? Odd. I wonder if that's, oh, you know what? I wonder if we're seeing just like the edge of the ceiling back there. Turn this off with the camera. Yeah, look at that. There's a little tiny bit of the background showing through. So there's like a wall back there that's not quite connected to the ceiling. Okay, that's very good to know. Okay, so looking at these two, they're very, very, very similar, right? The only major difference that I'm seeing between the two is look at this window pane. See, do you see how that's like with the area light? It's kind of shining through and kind of glowing it up a little bit. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Huh. To tell you the truth, I'm actually kind of liking it. I think it kind of creates a nice little glow. It might not actually be, it might not be technically scientifically accurate, but I kind of like that additional glow that it's giving. And judging by like the rest of this, I think we're all in the same spot. The other part of this is like, look at the noise up in here, up over his head. I know this is all low res, but you can kind of see that there's more noise being generated from this light portal, which is more important to me at this point than the area light. So we've got that in our back pocket if we need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete both these lights. I'm going to go ahead and delete the sky dome and the portal light and just stick with the area light for now. If this is causing me problems, I know that later on I can use I can go back and switch it up. So now that I'm kind of pot committed on this one, I want to make sure to name this. So I personally, more recently, I've started to name all my lights with the word light at first, light underscore, and then like a description, either like window or area, whichever you prefer. Light window makes the most sense to me. Oh, the reason why I've used light underscore in the name is in case I ever have to set up a tool or a regular expression or something. And I always know that if I just do light underscore, I can always grab all the lights. Also, when I'm looking through the outliner here, it makes it much easier to find. Okay, so that being said, got this light in place. We've got it about the size we want. One of the things about this room, because and again, I should state this, that I'm approaching this with the mindset of I'm the creator for the look of this. So Remus worked with Becky to do a brilliant job of creating the animation. So the only thing that I am holding sacred that cannot be changed is the animation. And I know that when they create animation, they have a specific aspect ratio in mind. So I'll leave the aspect ratio where it is. I don't want to expand it too much or scrunch it in. But everything else, all the shaders, all of the look, the mood, I'm taking on me to change. So the one thing of looking back on this reference is that I really like how all of the tones in this image are warm. I like the mood that it's giving me. I like that it's giving me like a soft, comforting. It's like a warm embrace. This green wall is not doing it for me because I think that's going to kind of go away from that. And since I inherited this, there's a Lambert's, so I can just go ahead and replace this with a Arnold shader. So I always use the AI surface shader as my default. The reason why I'm switching it out to an AI surface shader is just because I'm a firm believer that a renderer is set up to render with its natural shaders. And if like it totally works fine with Maya shaders, totally fine, but it's a secondary thing that it's like doing some weird conversions. So I always like to stick to the render engine's native, just kind of like their native shaders. So I'm just gonna make this like kind of a warmer, kind of a beigeier color. Be kind of lame about it. But I want it to be a little bit lighter because I'm gonna have like, if you look at this, like all these light values around it and then having his darker skin tone pop forward. So I'll keep this a little bit lighter, but also a little bit on the warm side. So I'll just stick with that for now. I can always tweak it later. And then I'll make sure to save this as wall. That's the shader color. So the one thing too that's throwing me off is that like this is, you know, there's some manipulated light in here. It's a film after all. But the one thing that I'm seeing is that there's a lot of bounce light in here, and I'm not getting that bounce light. And I know that Arnold can give it to me. It's an indication that something isn't quite right. So like, because again, I want like a soft diffuse value in front of him and then these speck lights around the side. So at this point, I could either add an area light in front of him, but I don't want to draw in extra calculations necessarily from an additional light that'll create additional samples. So what I'm going to do is I know that I'm not getting more fill light in the scene because there's no wall in front of him. There's nothing for this light coming through this window to bounce on and come back at him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this wall, slide it forward, and then rotate it 180 degrees. And I'm going to position this in a way you can see as I don't want to go in front of the camera. So we'll go ahead and keep this back behind the camera here. And you can already start to see, like just looking at him, adding that wall there adds a little bit of a diffuse value. And the reason why I like it is it feels natural. Like it doesn't feel like there's a light there. It feels like there's a surface that is bouncing this light on here. And this wall is a little bit warm, so it's gonna bounce warm light in there. Speaking of warmth, we probably don't want this light to be too neutral. Yes, outside this window, like those values will feel very blown out white, but the light that's actually coming through is actually a little bit warm. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the color temperature here and just shift that a little bit warmer. It's still blown out, mind you, but like a lot of the light that's coming in is gonna bring up that warmth value. The other thing that you could do, just so that you're aware of, like I could add a completely separate shader to this, and I probably will actually, just so I can control it a little bit. And then this surface shader, call it, what do we call this one? Wall paints. We'll call this one wall paint. I would just call it bounce because this will only be for bouncing that light back. So if we assume that this is the same color, bouncing the light in, that's all well and good. It's up to 1. But I can control how much light is being bounced back by the value of the shader. Like if I turn this up to 10, we can bounce a lot more light off of it and bring that back into the scene. So, but in this particular case, we'll keep it at 1 for now. I might actually, let's go ahead and increase that a little bit because we can always bring this back down, but I want to just kind of make sure that we're getting enough diffuse value in there for now. So again, just one light coming in through the window. I'm not concerned about whether or not, these windows are in the render right now. I know that I can break those out separately later, render them separately, bring in some more reflection into those windows, and as well as get some more blowout and more diffusion. like I said, from the in the comp. So got this wall there. I do like that I'm kind of seeing a little bit into this room here, a little bit back into this space. Got a little bit of light influencing his neck here. But now what I really want, again, because this is going to be my main focus, is getting the specular highlight here and specular highlight over here. And so I'm going to do that by creating a couple of spotlights. And I will show you something else that I'll do here, because this is real life, baby, is I will go ahead and save another iteration. I always save in steps. Oh, that's weird. Where did that come from? Oh, that was really bizarre. Huh. I always make sure to save in iterations when I work so that I can always go back, because lots of times I will corrupt a file, and because I'm not the best in the world, and I will. I always like to have some iterations saved out because these files aren't that big. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and start getting some spec lights in there. So what we want to do, light, spotlight, and for this spotlight, I will go ahead and call it light underscore spec. I usually say SR for screen right, or SL for screen left, or SC for screen center, because this light's going to come in from off of this screen right side. I always do it. You know, some people might do it stage right, stage left. I've always thought about it because you don't want to say right or left, because it's always like, wait, what do you mean? You mean based on the camera position or based on from the character's vantage point? So I always say screen right or screen left. Right. So we're going to kind of want to we'll start with just firing it in here. We can always adjust that. Select the light. A couple things I do pretty much by default in every light is just go ahead and make sure that the edge of it is softer, because we don't really want to ever see a hard circle of like the edge of it. And then just by default, I always give a little bit of radius, because like I said, I never even want to test with it with a radius of 0, because it just can cause so many false reads on stuff. Okay, so we got this light coming in here. Let me move it inside here. Just looking at the shape that it's giving it. Like I said, I know this is like super low res, but fastest way for me to work, because I just have like a little MacBook here. This isn't, you know, a few years old. It's not the fanciest of computers. So you work with what you got. And I genuinely do like to work on this for my teaching, because I want to show you all that you don't necessarily, like, you don't have the money for the most sophisticated, you know, like super GPU rendering computer. So I want to show you that you can make good images with any machine. It's just a matter of making some adjustments to it. Okay, so we've got this value, super strong, right? But the biggest thing is like it's lighting the dickens out of his diffuse color, and that's not what we want. So what I would do with this light is bring the diffuse value way down and just allow these specular highlights to be the thing. They're still too bright, so I'm gonna go ahead and take them down quite a bit. And they're also feeling pretty big. Like this is feeling pretty big on his arm. So I'm gonna go ahead and take down this radius quite a bit. This back just a little bit. I should say that last version. So now we've got a nice strong spec hit here on his side. Let's go ahead and bring that around. Keep this angle. Sorry, I go quiet when I do this sometimes. I'm sorry, I should be talking through my process. So what I was doing before is I was realizing that the specular that I was really pushing in was just too strong. And like, it wasn't just affecting his specular value, it was really affecting his, it was just affecting his overall look too much. The other thing I want to check is the kind of the color of this. It's pretty neutral. It might be even a little bit on the cool side. Try that. Just cooling off the temperature, and I'm only using these use color temperatures because I'm dealing with natural light. There's really no artificial light in here. If I was using artificial light, I'd go up here and use the color a little bit more. Okay, so I'm not crazy about these shapes that I'm getting here on the arm, but I really like what's going on in the face here. Can make some adjustments there, but let me go ahead and keep moving forward for now because I definitely want to use this and duplicate this light and make this the screen left one. Because again, when I was pointing out, we've got this light coming in here and this light coming in here. In ours, we'll play around with it, but I may want to flip it in, because like in this one, his screen left is a little brighter than his screen right. This one, just because of the position of the window, I may make the screen right one a little bit brighter. But we've got the screen left one created now. I'm gonna look through the selector on that. I'm gonna swing this around to the other side. Bring it a little closer. Now you can start to see some speck light coming in here. I'm gonna want to soften that. That's a little intense. Seeing here, I think his skin tone in the original might be a little bit darker. So let me go ahead and just tweak that shader down just slightly. Subsurface color. Just lower that down a little bit. The other thing that might be hurting me here, let me check this one too. Yeah, the subsurface might have just been a little deep too. Right. Can adjust that later. But now we're starting to see, again, this dark value in through his core with just these like specular highlights kind of coming through on the sides. And I think that's pretty much where we want to head with this. And what I'm going to do, let's see where we are at. Okay, let me see if I can get, because I kind of like the way this screen left one is looking, the way that that's kind of falling into place. I want to keep working with the screen right one because I'm not crazy about, again, that shape. I think maybe I could come in lower is what I should try. And I kind of get that speck down his arm a little bit. Better there. See, the problem is like, because now I'm focusing too much on this and I'm realizing I'm kind of losing the shaping that I wanted to create on his head there. Try this. This could be working a little better. Now, as I'm A-Bing back and forth between these, I'm looking at this. I might want to add just like, I know I just went ahead and cranked this diffusion down to like 0. And I know that it being up towards 1 is going to be too much. But maybe something like a nice little happy medium spot between those two is kind of where I want to be. So I can get a little, because that is pushing the diffuse value a little bit, but I don't want it to go too crazy. So let me just go ahead and cut the diffuse down to like 1/3 of it, like 30% of it. Let's see. Let me take this up all the way again, and let me just A/B it. Because sometimes if the IPR takes too long, what ends up happening is I kind of forget what the old one looked like. And so what I really like to do is just save the image. And I'll take this down 3. Maybe take this down a little bit too. Because truthfully, it's more the subsurface at this point that's affecting it than anything else. Actually, that's true this other one too. Yeah, for the screen left side, I feel like this is working pretty well. For the screen right side, maybe we do want to bring this up a little bit. All right. Setting a little bit of the diffuse, a little bit of the subsurface in there is kind of nice, because now we can get this speck coming on the left side, speck coming on the right side. And you see how his screen left side of his face is got a little bit more diffusion to it. We can do that in this side. Maybe just like, ugh. See, now I'm just wavering. Now I'm just noodling. Just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that feels better. Okay. Okay. So I'm happy with the way this is looking. And I feel like this is generally looking pretty good on this pose. Now I got the moment of truth here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap this out. Let's go to just like the first frame and see what that looks like. And actually, this is working out pretty well. So there's some good shaping here. There's this specular light is creating a little bit of it. We can adjust this to create a little more rim on his back, but I'm really liking this specular highlight and the shaping across the nose, the shaping across the forehead. So I was worried that I was going to have to animate these lights, and I still might, but I kind of like these the way this is going. So I'm going to save this out. And I was man, that's so funny that it saves that, and every time it kind of goes nutty. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as is for now. We are at 9:33, so I'm a couple minutes over. But I just want to like leave this as is. I might make some more tweaks before the next time. But the next time what I want to do is, you know what? Let me do this real quick because I was just thinking it through. I want to have some like renders already generated for you guys for the next round. Because generally speaking, and this is just my workflow, I know some lighters like to wiggle a shot in the renderer for like a month and then render it out and that's their final render, and then they start building the comp. I work a little differently where I think that lighting and comp and shaders all kind of work together. So I just kind of like fluidly move back and forth. So as soon as I get something that looks relatively like I want, I will go ahead and render it out with all the AOVs and build like a quick slap comp, so I can start to get a rough idea of what I want to do. So what I would do in this particular case, because again, I know that I'll probably break this character out separately from the background and the window separately. I'm not going to do that quite yet. I'll show you guys that maybe next week. But what I will do is go ahead and set up my my render settings so that I can start generating a few things. So biggest things when I'm setting this up is this is an animated frame sequence, so I want to go ahead and make sure you use name. The pound sign is the frame numbers, and then you want to pad it to the point where there's enough zeros where you're not it always starts with a 0, because that'll it could screw up your editing software. So I always pad it out to 4. If you want to change this to be something more creative with the name, you can do something like master layer, and then it's master layer 01 through whatever the frame range is. In this particular case, let me check. We're up to frame 294. So 294. And then instead of this being the aspect ratio, I would, scale it up to its full potential. We'll go ahead and shut this down so I can set this so it doesn't update each time. Make sure we're rendering from the camera cam. Go ahead and render out some Z depth. We want to merge the AOVs because I don't want to create a bunch of AOVs in each layer. I'll mess around with these sample settings. I don't think I'll have any, I don't think I'll have to ray depth. I'll probably need a couple. I'll play with that, but I have to think about that. But the biggest thing I wanted to point out to you guys was just generating these AOVs. Biggest ones, I want to get the normals and an ID mat. I doubt I'll end up using those, but you never know. I can bring the RGBA, which is standard. I bring in the Z depth in case I want to add some depth of field. For me, I usually just use a diffuse, an indirect and indirect, direct and indirect diffuse. I'll use direct light, indirect light. I've had people ask me like, what is my default? And these are kind of my defaults. Specular, both direct and indirect. Subsurface, direct and indirect. Transmission, I don't think anything's transmissive in this shot, so I won't worry about that. And then definitely all my crypto mats. I love me some crypto mats. Go ahead and slide these over into the active AOVs. I select the driver just to ensure that we have merged AOVs, close it out. And now what I could do is I could render out the entire frame range. What I'll probably end up doing is just rendering out like the first frame and the last frame. So I'll probably change these before I actually render. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up on just kind of my workflow on that. Let me go and save this out now. Okay, so before I end today's session, I just want to see if anybody has any questions about my workflow or anything at all. So I'll go ahead and turn on my video, stop sharing my screen. Is there a proper amount of specularity in the skin shader, or is it just something to eyeball? It's just something to eyeball. It depends on the character. It depends on the style of what you're doing. Like, I don't know if you can see, like in this lighting, I mean, it's a summer night, so maybe I'm like, but I have some good specularity coming across my forehead, like across my hand, across my knuckles. So you're gonna want to, if you're doing for something more photoreal, you're gonna add more specularity versus if like in the Peanuts movie that I worked on, we used less specularity because we wanted to look a little bit more, just a little bit more matte overall. And then I always say this too, that the darker the skin, or the darker the look of your character, the more you want to lean on specularity to create shaping. Whether it's like dark hair or dark fur, dark skin tones, a dark object. Like if the character has like a black superhero costume, you want to make sure to use specular highlights in order to create that shaping. Oh yeah, thank you, and have a great night to you too. Another question just came in. Is there another way to shape your ambient fill for an indoor scene? Yeah, totally. You can, well, I'm assuming you mean as opposed to creating more geo. Yeah, totally. There's infinite number of ways. If I wanted to, I could have created another area light. I could have created another spotlight, something with some diffusion. What I wanted to do, or usually my protocol is, I want to create some geometry that simulates the way that geometry would bounce around the room and start with that. As I said earlier, there's nothing that is sacred about this scene. There's nothing that I won't delete, change, alter, fix, update, move. So what I created in that wall in the foreground off camera is my solution for now. If I'm finding that I'm looking at it, or in a normal shot, you show it to director and they're like, oh, actually we need this kind of frontal fill. It's too flat. We really need to generate a lot more shaping out of that. I go, okay, cool. I'll delete that wall, or take that shader and tone it way down so it's just kind of like just a tiny bit of overall kind of ambience. And then I'll create a fill light that's off to the side that shines on that soft, that'll create more shaping on him than that bounce light will. There are definitely more than one ways to do any of this stuff. So that is a very good question. But like I said, this is just how I approach it, and this is how I would do it. All right. Oh yeah, of course. My pleasure. All right, I'm gonna hop over into Facebook to see if there's any questions over here. No, you guys look like you're good. So I will go ahead and end it off there. Like I said, if you guys need anything, let me know, and I will be happy to fill you in. So I'm gonna try something new on Wednesday, so just be aware of this. I am going to be sending out. It's going to be like an Ask Me Anything, but I realize that these sessions are generally just me in my apartment. Talking at my computer screen, and I really want to kind of get to know you guys a little bit more. So for this week's Ask Me Anything, I want to encourage you all to hop on my Zoom session with me. I'll send out the link. And I want to have a real conversation with you all about lighting. And I just kind of want to know where you all are and where you're coming from and how you're looking to get into this industry and what we can do to help you all out. So that's a little preview of what we're going to do Wednesday. And then Friday, we'll do another critique session. And hopefully by the end of this week, I will, as you guys know, because I don't really have a problem, I share too much information. I had my oral surgery earlier in the quarantine, so that's why this guy's missing. But hopefully this week, I will get my temporary replacement, and so you guys won't have to wonder, hey, does that guy not have a tooth in the front of his mouth? I will have a tooth there, and I'm very much looking forward to it, as I'm sure my wife is as well. So thank you all very much. I look forward to hearing from you all very soon. And yeah, if you have any other questions, let me know. And I can't wait to see what you guys do with the Sir Desmodus Rotundus Rotundus in this week's live, in this week's lighting, or this month's lighting challenge. So talk to you all soon. Happy lighting.